Hello everybody. I want to go over your basic harmony and contrast worksheet from this week. You'll find it in your syllabus. It looks something like that at the top. And we're going to go over some of the basic terms. Obviously you're going to be referring to a 12-part color wheel, and I want to consider things like monochrome. Monochrome just means one hue family. So it's something that with lights and darks, so lights and dark, you could have very bright and you could have very dull. You could have a whole range here from little on the, this is all the hue red, but this is obviously more red violet. That's more red orange. And there we are. So that is monochrome, one hue family. Analogous colors would be something like that. This is a 3-part spread on a color wheel. That is a 5-part spread on the color wheel. What I mean by that is if you look at your color wheel, these colors either spread across 3, or 5 steps on the color wheel. And that would be all the colors in that range. Now analogous can mean anything from 3 to 5, so it could mean 3, 4, or 5. But once you go to 6, you get something else called clash. These two colors actually clash. We'll describe that in a little bit. Okay? Complementary colors are dyads. Anytime you hear the suffix ad, ad, that means that you have equally spaced colors. That means that they are always equally spaced, and complementary are directly across from each other on the wheel. Classic complementary pairs are red and green, yellow and violet, and orange and blue. Cross complements are 4 colors that create an X on the wheel. So it looks something like this. It can also look like, if you take your complementary pair, it could be these two, or if you take your complementary pair, I feel like I'm playing a piano, it could be these two. So it'd be these 4 or these 4, and they're both cross complements. You can also have one space between the colors, so it could theoretically be that, but you wouldn't have 2 spaces between the colors. Once you have 2 spaces, you start to create something called a tetrad, where you have equally spaced colors, so you have 2 between every color you're choosing, and that's not considered cross-complementary. Cross-complementary would be a little bit more cozy, and the classic ones are touching one another like this. So these are all cross-complements. Okay? They form an X. Split complements are you take your complementary pair and then you split one side. And so this is a classic split complement. If you want to see what that looks like, it's nice to see it all by itself. I picked out kind of a little bit of a more difficult one and then an easier one. If we take something like this is supposed to be more of a yellow-orange, and this is supposed to be more of a red-orange. So they would sit here on your wheel, although on this wheel they'd sit something like this, and then you would have a blue across from them that would supposedly be the 3 colors. So this would be your split complement. The blue with a yellow-orange and a red-orange. But this one is a little confusing to me because they're not so clearly distinguished, especially in the camera. So what I'm going to take is more of a blue-green and a yellow-green. So in a split complement again, you've got you want a classic red, and then you have not green as the opposite, but you have 2 other colors, a blue-green and a yellow-green, and that creates what we would consider a split complement. This is appearing much bluer in the camera than it does in life, so it's hard to negotiate these things. Think theoretically, and also just use your own judgment. Now the next category is triads, tetrads, and hexads. Again, because we have that suffix AD at the end of each of these words, it means that they're equally spaced. So the most classic triad is your primary triad, yellow, red, and blue. When you mix yellow and red, you get orange. When you mix yellow and blue, you get green. So there you mix red and blue, and you get violet. In this case, this is your secondary triad, violet, orange, and green. A tetrad would be any colors that are equally spaced on the wheel. This is a tetrad, and that is a tetrad. Any 4 I want to pick that are equally spaced. Whoop, right there. Pardon my fingers. Fingers dancing and wandering on a keyboard. Those are all tetrads. Hexad is every other color. So basically a hexad is pretty much a rainbow is what you'll see. And I would say for this assignment, I want you all to do these harmonies. Monochrome, analogous, complementary, cross-complementary, split complement, and I would pick one of a triad or a tetrad. You don't need to pick all of those, just one of those. Okay, let's go to the next section, sorry about that, which is contrasts. And I'm pretty sure you know hue, value, and chroma, but we're going to go over them a little bit so they're clear. Classically, hue would mean, the contrast of hue would be something like this, red and green. Okay, you have a red and a green, but then you can have different types of reds and greens. So here you have a blue-green, here you have a green-green, and if I was to ask you a question, let's just play a little game here since we're online with each other, and I ask you a question, is this pair more or less harmonious than this pair? And think about that, which one is more harmonious and why? And I'll give you a little bit of a clue into this. This is harmonious, and this is harmonious, but for different reasons. So consider why, and we might start a discussion on it, or we can just mail each other back and forth some notes. But it's something to think about. So that's hue. Value, and maybe here's where you get your clue. This is light, this is darker. So they are different in value, but they are also different in hue. If I wanted to try to look at something more of just a value difference, I could do something like this. This is lighter, this is darker, that's value, but they're the same hue. If I look at chroma or intensity, I would take something like this, which is not only darker in value, but also duller in chroma. It has dulled its chroma significantly. So what we might want to try to do here is find a duller, I'm searching around in my color aid while I talk to you, for a duller green. And this might be, this is a brighter green, obviously, but this is duller. Okay, brighter would mean closer to the pure hue, and duller would mean it was a complex mixture of some type. Remember this chart? You can refer to this chart to understand where something's actually getting duller or where you have a complex mixture of colors creating something duller. This is actually referring to chroma, and so you can visit this chart to see where does a color get duller, where does it get brighter, and what's in between. I'm also going to send you some images that students create in class, and you can create these at home with your color aid to guide you in seeing what chroma is about. Complementary colors are basically opposite on the wheel. So you have something like this is a complementary pair, blue and orange. Complementary just means they rest across from one another. Where this stems from